Whoa, hey, phone. Hey. It's good, everyone. Yeah, right? Careful, careful. Phone dropping. Sassy, thank you for inviting. VG, thank you for joining. Bluntopia, you guys. Thank you for swiping and inviting. I definitely appreciate it. Hey, thank you, VG. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for following. How is everyone? I am well, Angie. How are you today? Slightly fragrant. Thank you for inviting your followers. Thank you for tapping the screen. Thank you for swiping and inviting, guys. Let's make sure we're doing that. Getting ready for Monday morning motivation. So normally I do all cannabis, right? Or almost all cannabis. Sometimes we talk politics. Sometimes we get into a little bit of other stuff. If you didn't already know, I'm at Big Bear Cannabis. I have over 20 years of hands-on experience with marijuana. Started a business in Washington from the ground up, and now work in a multi-million-dollar grow facility. However, today, I'm not going to talk about cannabis. I'm actually going to talk about some motivational stuff. I want you guys to be ready for this week. I want you guys to have a great week, so I'm going to change it up just a touch. I hope that you guys are all right with that. Love to have you guys visit. If anyone's ever down in Las Vegas, please let me know. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. So I want to let you know that don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't, right? Don't let anyone ever tell you that you're not able, that you can't do something. We all have a story, right? We all grew up in a dysfunctional home. I saw a study one time that said that like 83 or 94 or something % of people grew up in a dysfunctional environment, right? We've all had the father that wasn't there. We had the mom that was the alcoholic, the uncle that molested us, the brother that died, the teacher that was abusive. We all have a story, and you can either let that story hold you back, or you can let that story motivate you. I'm a believer in the 90-10 life theory, which says that 10% of life is what happens to you and 90% is how you react to it. Take what happens in your life, the challenges in your life, and use those challenges to motivate you to do your best. This universe is not going to bring you anything that you are not able to handle. And how many times throughout your life have you thought, I can't believe this just happened to me. I lost a job. I got a flat tire. I broke a leg. How many times has that happened to you, and it ended up being the best thing that's ever happened to you, right? But at the time, what do we want to do? We want to get angry. We want to get upset. When we're in the moment, we're lost. We're searching for reason, and this universe does not always have reason. This life doesn't always have reason, right? We don't always understand it, but what happens is it always brings us to the place where we need to be. I think of my buddy Scott. I had a good friend, Scott. I have a good friend named Scott, and he broke his femur at the age of like 26, 27 years old, and he was devastated. I mean, he was living in Japan at the time, and when he broke his leg, he snapped his femur. I mean, it was awful. It was a horrible injury, but it seemed really odd. And so the doctors went in and they started, to do some surgery, and they found that he actually had bone cancer, and that if he had not broken his leg, that they would have never found this, and he would almost certainly not be here today. And my point here is that there's nothing that you won't have in your life none of us get to stay, right? We all have to leave. We all don't get to stay here forever, right? And it's something that's not the funnest thing to think about, but make this moment the best moment that you can, right? Don't worry about tomorrow's bills. You don't have to worry about tomorrow's bills today. Tomorrow's bills are not right now, right? The the argument that you had with a coworker, the argument that you had with your son or spouse or daughter or whoever, that happened yesterday, right? And it's no longer, almost certainly not applicable anymore, right? So let that stuff go. Don't think about the future. Don't think about the past. Be right here, right in this moment, right? Don't waste your energy on what you cannot control. I really believe that the universe has a plan for you, that you are a drop in the ocean, and yet you are the ocean, right? You can't separate a drop. I just hopped up. We have a pool at my house. I'm fortunate enough blessed enough to have a pool at my home. And Bluntopia, thank you for joining, and thank you for inviting your followers. I much appreciate that. 90 here, but I'm dripping in sweat. Yeah, up in the Northwest, that's gonna be hot. So I just jumped in my pool half an hour, 45 minutes ago. Probably closer to an hour, and it was just perfect. Oh, it was so perfect. Because by then the water's cooled down to like 85, maybe 80 degrees. It's like a warm tub. It was like jumping into like a warm tub, and it's still hot out. It's still like 90, 95 degrees out. Candy Hearts, thank you for joining. Oh, I'd love that. Well, I don't know how well it mixed with the chlorine, but Georgia was, yeah, exciting. Miserable would be another way of putting that, I suppose. What part of Nevada? Las Vegas. Yeah, it was beautiful tonight. So I named this broadcast, Don't Let Anyone Ever Tell You You Can't. And what I mean by that is your mind is far more powerful than you give it credit. And I honestly believe that our thoughts are things, and that what you think about, you become. And if you are struggling with something, whether it's weight or a drug or a family issue or money or whatever the case might be, that it's not just changing your thoughts. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're going to... I'm paralyzed from the waist down, I would assume, if you're typing. Oh, knock the roach right out. Knock the cherry right out. The universe is reflecting back to you, and that's maybe not good. Well, lately I've been thinking a lot about what I'm doing here. You know, what is this all about? Why are we here? Where do we come from? Are we really just these giant meat suits running around? Are we just animals that have evolved? I don't prescribe to a religion. Not to say that I'm not religious, but I wouldn't say that I prescribe to some religion. And maybe that's the case. You know, maybe I am just an animal and I have a higher level of thinking. I've evolved to this point where I have the ability to develop thoughts and rationalize and think and feel. And that's a distinct possibility. But the one thing that I keep going back to is the fact that none of this is real, right? That this table is solid, but it's really not. All the molecules are moving around, and there's more space than there is stuff, right? So if you get down to a molecular level, right, in atoms, if the nucleus of an atom was the size of my pinky, the electrons and neutrons that are running outside of it as the shell are a mile that way, right? And a mile that way. That's how much empty space there is, right? And that space is only dwarfed by the space of the connecting molecules. The molecules that connect to each other are even further apart than that. So it's like our universe is very similar. You have the nucleus of the sun, right? There's far more planets that you can fit in between each